Well, fans of HGTV may remember the story of Jen Hatmaker. She's the mom who turned a 100-year-old farmhouse into a dream home for her family of 7. And while the viewers were laughing their way through the 8-part series, Jen says the show did something else. It saved her family.
I'm Jen Hatmaker. This looks nice, and I'm a mom.
Last year, audiences met Jen Hatmaker and her family as they remodeled their home on HGTV's My Big Family Renovation. Jen, her husband, and 5 kids grew weary through the long process, partly because Jen had to have everything perfect.
These clean clothes right here.
Jen shares this family adventure and other humorous stories in her new book, For the Love.
Jen's book, For the Love, is now in bookstores, and you can catch re-airs of the Big Family Renovation on the DIY network. Check your local listings for dates and times for that. Jen, it's great to have you back.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Your book is hilarious. I mean, I was weeping. I was laughing so hard. I said to one of my daughters last night, I just got to read this chapter to you. And then I proceeded to laugh so hard I couldn't even speak.
I'm so tickled to hear that. I love it.
You say that usually reality shows feature tearing people apart, which is true. Yep. That seems to be the going thing right now. But in reality, your husband says this show actually saved your family. What do you mean by that?
Isn't that strange?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be terrified to have a reality
show. Well, and we
done.
were. We did not know what to expect, but as we came into the show, we had come off a season of just running parallel. We were both working so hard in our own spaces, and our family almost just felt like a bunch of roommates, honestly. And so this show, I mean, it really forces us a lot of togetherness when you're on a show in a house you're renovating and living in. And we had the best time working together, working alongside one another, working with our crew, working with our kids. By the end of it, we sat down and just said, this has been the best thing for our marriage in 10 years.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it weird?
Well, it's really wonderful. I guess it's the way family used to be, isn't it? You know?
Well, yes,
everybody
exactly.
focused together, going in the same direction. You talk a lot in your book, For the Love, about the peril in the lives of especially women today, but I think it's men as well. Hits our children. Perfection. I have to be the best at this. I have to do it just right. And you yourself have struggled with that. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I think the internet has given us many good gifts, but in some ways it's made it really hard for us to believe that we're enough. You know, we just see every single moment this very curated online identity, all these men and women just excelling in their area and in their sphere. And I see a lot of women just say, I should be all of that. I should be that incredible. But I'm 41 now, and so I'm sort of in this next stage of my life.
40 gives you a lot of permission,
It really does. And I'm telling you, I am convinced that rather than trying to be awesome all the time, let's be wise. Yeah. Let's just realize what we can hold on to and what we can let go with no regrets and no apologies, and just live in freedom exactly how we are and where we are.
And that's really what you even start the book with, is recognize that we have the freedom as women, as men, as grown-ups, to say no, and it's okay, and to not measure up to other people's expectations.
That's not even a true thing. That what we see out there is sort of, it's crafted. And so what I tell my peers and the girls that are coming up behind me is this: when it comes to being a mother and a wife and a friend, my goal is good enough. That's my goal. If I'm a good enough mom and my kids turn out good enough adults, great. If I'm a good enough wife and I'm trying as hard as I can, that's enough. And there's a beauty and a freedom in finally embracing that.
Yeah, and in not making any one of those areas of your life so invested that you leave the others crawling on the dirt behind you.
That's
right. So prioritizing and yet evenly spreading the love. Your book is called For the Love, which you kind of use as in place of an expletive throughout the book. But talk about what the title means, because it also means spiritually something significant.
It really does. At this season of my life, my husband and I have been in full-time ministry our whole adult lives. And we work globally and we work in our community. And I am just very convinced that Jesus was right, that the substance of life is love God and love people. And that is, he gave us those marching orders for a reason. love for our world and our communities and our cities, it heals and it transforms and it sets people free. And it changes us. And so I think we've bogged down into a lot of systems and rules and lists. But what I see in my life at this point is that love really is the greatest. It really is the best. And I am committed for my life, the rest of my life, to love God and love people well.
And loving people well can be a hard deal. I mean, lots of us aren't very lovable, you know, but one of the other messages throughout your book is radical grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a call to remind us that that's what we get.
That's right.
And we need to extend it.
Grace to me is the secret sauce. What I see with so many of my friends and the women in my generation is that when we tend to be really self-critical, we have a hard time receiving grace. And what I find is that we tend to be others critical. It just, those are partners.
Yep.
And so when I'm feeling the worst about myself, when I cannot believe that God loves me just because he does, then I have a really hard time loving other people. Grace is, I really struggle to grasp it. So I'm hopeful, I really am hopeful that if we can manage to grab onto that tail of grace, believe it, receive it, and live in it, think about how beautifully we will be able to give it.
Yes. And it changes things when we do. I love the fact that with all the things that you write about in the book, and it's very thought-provoking. It's funny, but it's very thought-provoking. I love the fact that you maintain the value of family dinner and gathering together. Now, I know if your family's like mine, you don't hit the mark with that every single night.
Of course not.
But you love to cook, and you make that a time of fellowship.
I do. I love to cook, and that's something I've reclaimed in the last 10 years. I believe when I sort of started my adult life, I thought, this is too much for me. This is a burden. And somewhere around age 30, I thought to myself, you know what? These people that live in my house, they want to eat every day. And so I probably ought to change my mind about this. And I just flipped a switch. And now what I've seen is not only is it such a connector for our family, but for our community. A shared table is such a beautiful expression of hospitality. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to be a good cook. That can be a pot of chili. That can be a burger. It does not have to be fancy, but inviting people in around your table, whether it's your family or your friends and community, is holy ground.
Yeah, and it really is a place for everybody to come together at the end of a day in the crazy world and just kind of reconnect with each other.
That's right, and I think it's lost. I think we've lost it just a little bit. We structure our family weekdays at home. It feels radical, and it shouldn't be, but we are around the table, the 7 of us, almost every night of the week.
That's awesome.
And that means we say a lot of no's. We refuse a lot of other options. And there's a lot of things that just don't fit in at this stage in life, but that matters to me so much. And that is where we get so much family business done. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You talk about loving people and how much God's impressed that mandate on your heart. Your family has created a nonprofit. Talk about that.
Thank you for asking about that. It's brand new. We're right out of the gate. It's called the Legacy Collective. We've been dreaming about it for over a year. So what my husband and I did is we thought, you know what? Most of us are just ordinary. We have a little bit to give every month. So we thought, what if we created a nonprofit where everybody just gave a little bit? So we have over 1,000 partners, and some giving as little as $10 a month. But nobody giving a huge amount. But collectively, we have a huge sum of money to give away every single month, and it's replenished. At the beginning of the month, we start over, and so we are working.
How do you decide who to give it to?
I know, right? Well, I can tell you that what our grid is. Our grid is systemic injustice with sustainable solutions. So that's our narrow focus. We are looking at deep-seated, deep-rooted issues, and we are looking at problem solvers and leaders and innovators who are answering that in long-term sustainable ways. And in that, we are so excited to be funders, both here in our country and all around the world. And so this is our first month to begin sending that out, and we could not be more thrilled.
I just want to say to you, you got to read this book, For the Love. It's now in bookstores. You can catch repairs of My Big Family Renovation on the DIY Network. Check your local listings for dates and times. But this is a book that will make you laugh and think all at the same time. For the Love by Jen Hatmaker. Jen, thank you. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Always fun.